Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Each episode, you'll dive into conversations with top entrepreneurs, visionaries, and business leaders, unlocking the secrets to building profitable relationships that drive growth and success. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, presented by LeDuc Entertainment. Today we are joined by Vanessa Vasquez de Lara, who is the founder and owner of Vasquez de Lara Law Group. Vanessa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Can we start out? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the Vasquez de Lara Law Group?
Sure. So I am a family attorney that I have my firm here in Miami, Florida. And our mission is making lives better in and out of family court. I've been practicing for over 22 years, which feels very weird to say, but it just means that I've been doing this for a long time and I've been practicing for a long time. So my practice is now grown from me in one little 10 by 10 interior office to a team of over 30 people. Wow. And we just hired our 8th attorney. So I'm super proud of that.
When clients come to the Vasquez de Lara Law Group, what are some of the pain points, problems they're experiencing that you're helping them solve?
So we really work only in the family law space. And what that means is that we are really a divorce attorney, custody, support, prenuptial agreement. So, and the pain points tend to be the relationship has run its course, or the relationship is now toxic, or the relationship is starting its next legal phase, with people getting married. So those tend to be kind of like the pain points that people come to see us, is something related to their relationship, whether starting it or ending it.
What inspired you to found your own law firm? How did you get into this space?
I love that story, to be honest with you. When I started practicing, I worked for a few solos, and that was a great way of getting experience. I don't know how anybody goes out and practices law by themselves for the first time. So I practiced with a few attorneys, but then when I had my second kid, who is now 16, I decided that I wanted to take some time, really like an extended maternity leave. And so I quit my job just before I had him, thinking that I'd be out maybe 3 to 6 months and kind of start figuring things out. But I really was able to be out for a few years. And although I kind of kept my pulse, maybe did a CLE, did a little case over here, a little case over there, really it was, being a full-time mom. And when my kids started school, when they were 3 and 5, then it was kind of like, okay, I'm still paying those student loans. Perhaps I should put that degree back into practice. And so, but at that point, I kind of felt that it would be really difficult to get a job that would allow me the flexibility that I had as a full-time stay-at-home mom. So I did the numbers and I figured, okay, well, if I can bill X number of hours a week, this is going to be the same as if I had a job. And that's really how I started, was thinking just, okay, how many hours can I bill that will get me to exactly the same place as when I used to have a job? Right. And the math, really worked in my favor. I really wasn't making a lot when I was working for somebody else. And that's kind of how I got started. And that was now going on 13, almost 14 years.
And what inspired you to focus your practice on family law instead of, say, personal injury or anything like that, or maritime law? What inspired you to focus on family law?
So in law school, I used to say that I would not do family law and I would not do criminal law. Apparently, I would do anything else. Then, like the saying goes, man plans and God laughs. My second job at a law school was at a family law firm. And once I was in it and practicing in it, I realized that I was really good at making sure that families and the individuals in a family were able to be heard, were able to, I was able to give that compassionate, connection to them about what was going to happen next. And I kind of realized that it wasn't, the very negative perspective that most people have of family law. And so that's what I learned to do. My first job was probate. My second job was family. When I opened the law firm, those are the two areas of law that I practiced. And a few years ago, just before pandemic, I closed the probate part of the firm because I felt that I could be more useful, really, in kind of niching down in family law. How, like the saying goes, the riches are in the niches.
Right.
Niche down to only being able to provide that family law. And it people love to say, oh, I can't believe that you do that. That would be so difficult. I could never do that. You do have to have the right personality to do family law. You have to be able to empathize and be a compassionate advocate. But at the same time, you have to be able to separate yourself and distance yourself a little bit from your clients and not take on their problems, because obviously I wouldn't be able to sleep if I took on the 250 clients that we are helping, if I took their problems on myself. So that's how I like to train my associates is you got to be compassionate, but in order to not get burned out, you kind of have to have those boundaries.
Right. I mean, do you find it hard to sort of compartmentalize and keep, I mean, is that difficult to do, to keep those kind of, that stays at work, home is over here, this is my real life, this is work. I mean, what strategies do you utilize? Is that really difficult? I imagine it would be.
So we don't need a, severance type of situation here, but I do it really well. I am able to sort of like, leave the problems at the office.
Right.
And I train my associates in that. They're not allowed to give out their cell phones. They're not, I encourage them to disconnect. I encourage them to not check their emails and not check their messages, to make sure that they have that separation. We try to train our clients as well about the fact that there's really not a lot of emergencies that we can really jump into and fix. If the cops get called to your house, I probably, can't do anything about it. You're going to have to sort of deal with that situation. If a parent won't return your call, I got to call their attorney the next day. So there's really very little that we have to sort of take on by really allowing our associates to focus on themselves and their families when they're not sort of on and during working hours. I feel that can really help them to create those healthy boundaries.
Well, and then the other thing that you mentioned was the need for compassion. And can you speak a little bit more about the importance of being compassionate in your role?
Yeah, I mean, compassion is really one of the values that our law firm operates under. And it's so important because at the end of the day, this is usually somebody's first divorce case, somebody's first, child support or custody case. We see this all the time. So for us, it's something where we live in this world. We talk about it, we shorthanded. Did you talk to OC? Did OP call you back? And if we spoke like that to our clients, they would be like, what is happening? So I really try hard to make sure that our team is, remembering that this is probably the first time that somebody's dealing with this, the first time that they have this type of relationship that might be falling apart, this time that they're dealing with this type of partner or, parent that is creating these difficulties in their life. So we really try hard to make sure that our entire team sort of has that focus of being compassion oriented towards our clients, to ensure that they are feeling listened to, heard, but that they really, at the end of the day, feel supported. We like to say that we want to make sure that the client feels like we are, another one of our values is family, like we are their family, but at the same time that they're able to come to us. And we're not going to have that, oh, not this again. I told you to leave that guy. But that we're going to be a little bit more supportive and a little bit more compassionate about, the end of that relationship.
Right. So when clients come to the firm, when clients come to you, is it sort of a one-size-fits-all approach, or is everything a very highly custom tailored strategy to that individual case?
A lot of family matters are very similar. So there's going to be sort of a structure that we fit into everybody. Every divorce case will need to have, the petitions to the court, and we'll need to have the financial exchange and documents. But we do try to make sure that we are personalizing our approach to the case by making sure that we know what your priority is. I
Right.
like to say that when you start working with us, we ask you, what is your number one priority? Because although you want everything, always, you want to, win, the reality is that we need to focus on what is the most important thing to you. Is it going to be the schedule with your kids? Is it going to be that you get the alimony that you need in order to continue your lifestyle? Is it the child support? Is it the equitable distribution? You need more cash, you need more properties. And so having that sort of like that number one priority, and the additional priorities to kind of like fall in line beneath that, that allows us to every step of the case to tell our clients, hey, you told us your priority is to get this over with as quickly as possible. You told us that your priority is to get the most alimony possible. You told us that. So here are the steps that we are taking in order to make sure that we are meeting you where your priorities lie.
Right.
And that allows us to, within the framework of every family case, be able to give you the advice that best fits that priority that you are seeking.
What do you think are some of the common misconceptions that people have about family law? Maybe some of the common misconceptions people have about divorce proceedings.
There's so many misconceptions. Here in Florida, we just got equal time sharing. That is something that has changed. But even before the law changed back in 2023, that was what our courts were doing. So we will see anything from, when I started practicing over 20 years ago, dads used to get every other weekend. That was just the most common thing. Moms had the majority time sharing. They used to be called the custodial parent, and dads tended to get alternating weekends. The law changed in 2023, and our governor signed the Good Dad Act, which made it a presumption for parents to start their time sharing at equal or 50-50. So if a parent is looking for equal and the other one doesn't want it, the one that doesn't want it has to prove that it's actually not in the child's best interest to have that equal time sharing schedule. So the
Right.
biggest misconception comes sort of like from both sides of that, from people who don't realize that moms are not the end all be all in custody cases anymore. And also the ones that are, I absolutely am entitled to equal time sharing. So the moms that think that they're entitled to all of it, that's definitely not accurate. But the people who think that they will absolutely get it is also not accurate, because it is a presumption. That means that the court starts its analysis there, but that doesn't mean that that's where the court ends. You may have to demonstrate, if the other side is able to show that it is not in your children's best interest to have that schedule, you then have to kind of come back and say, well, no, it is in my children's best interest. And here is my evidence that would show that.
Right. And I mean, are there any other trends that you've seen or any other changes that you've seen in the family law space come and go over the years? And I guess the other part of that question would be, are there any trends or changes that you predict and see on the horizon?
So the other big one, and I feel that it's probably a little bit partly connected to our very Latin population here in South Florida. We practice in Miami-Dade and Broward, so probably 95% of our clients tend to be Latin. And there is a very common thing in many Latin countries, which is sort of a separate bank accounts, separate assets, things. This is my stuff, this is your stuff. It might be something that's also reflected, nationwide, but I feel that there's a very Latin sort of edge to that, at least here in South Florida. So we will get people who say, well, no, but this property's in my name, so it's mine. And I'm like, oh, when did you buy it? During your marriage? Oh, I'm so sorry. That doesn't belong to you. That
Right.
belongs to both of you. So it's a very, very common thing to get people that walk in here and say, well, but no, that's mine. That's under my name. Or she didn't work, so it was all my money. And I'm like, no, it's
Right.
your money together as a couple within your marriage. And sometimes we get, clients that are really, really taken aback by the fact that they've been the only working person in the relationship, but everything that they've created is equal and marital. Or, well, but we kept our things separate, and I'm the saver and she's the spender, or he's the saver, he's the spender and I'm the saver. And then I have to break it to those people that, I'm sorry, you've been saving for both of you. And now, even though you let him spend all his money or her money, now you have to share what you saved. And so that can come as a really big shock to them. And trends for what I see coming down the pike, oh my goodness. I mean, we are definitely seeing so many changes in technology that I think that at some point there's going to be more of that kind of coming into play in parenting. And what do I mean by that? We already have a lot of, not a lot, but at least a handful of applications that help parents to co-parent better. And they include applications like our Family Wizard or Talking Parents. And we keep seeing changes in these applications. When they started, because they were definitely not around when I started, but when they started becoming a little bit more commonplace, they used to be used mainly for messaging, almost like your messenger or your text messages, a way of keeping the messages in one place so that a judge or an attorney or a guardian ad litem would be able to see those messages, and see the back and forth between the parents.
Right.
They have now evolved to where you can video chat on there and record the video chats with your children, where they have GPS enabled so that you can prove that you went to the exchange location where you were supposed to pick up your kid, and the other parent cannot prove that they were not, that they were there, even though they're claiming that they were there. So,
Right.
I mean, we see all of these things that are, sort of technology enabling co-parenting, and for good and for bad. I mean, it's, ultimately, if your client is a good actor, that's really for good. If your client is the bad actor, then that may not be super helpful. But it will hopefully enable parents to recognize that the co-parenting relationship is so important, that utilizing these tools and making sure that you're putting your best foot forward in co-parenting happens on a regular basis.
Right. Well, we've talked a little bit about your practice. I'd like to shift the conversation a little bit because I want to talk a little bit about you, cum laude graduate, super lawyers. Can you tell me a little bit about super lawyers and what that means?
Sure. So the super lawyers is a designation that is awarded based on a few different things. My understanding is that it's only about 5% of the attorneys in any given state. And I've been a super lawyer, I think, since like 2016. So, within a few years of opening my practice, I was able to get, I think it's like the first one is Rising Star, and then moved on to super lawyers. And I believe that it's just, the amount of work that I do, the fact that, this is all that we do. Even before, when I had probate, for a while I had, I had associates doing that work. So really I've primarily been practicing family law for, going on about 10 years. And it allows you to be able to show the fact that you are, amongst your peers and in everything that the super lawyer brand sort of reviews, because it's not just something that you are chosen. It's not necessarily a popularity contest, but a few of the different, they keep their rubric secret, but they, my understanding is that they look at cases, they look at your reputation, they look at, all of the things that you're sort of putting out there, and we are constantly putting out information. I love to educate about family law. I love to educate about the things that people are going to encounter when they have to step into the family law arena. So I feel that a lot of that kind of plays in a little bit, with the super lawyers. And I believe this year, one or more of my associates also got, either super lawyers or rising stars. So, my team is also being able to show their amazingness.
Can you tell me a little bit about your role as the president of the Coral Gables Bar Association?
So this year I am the immediate past president. And what that means is that I was able to sort of, lead the organization. Coral Gables is one of the smaller towns within Miami-Dade County. When people think Miami, it's really Miami-Dade County. And Coral Gables is one of the cities inside of Miami-Dade County. And there's about, give or take 2,500 attorneys whose addresses are registered in Coral Gables. So it's a pretty good chunk of the South Florida attorneys either live or have their offices in Coral Gables. And what the organization tries to do is really foster that working together, networking together, being able to refer business to each other. And so to that end, I like to say that we are one of the most active voluntary bar organizations, because we do a monthly happy hour that is, scheduled the second Wednesday of every month. We do a lunch and learn that's scheduled the third Wednesday of every month. We do a breakfast that's scheduled once a quarter. We do, and this is in addition to any other events that we might participate in. So we really are throwing all of the attorneys, judges, magistrates together as much as possible to try to get that interaction within, the participants of the legal field.
Wow. Can you tell me a little bit about the Supreme Scholars Foundation?
Thank you. So I lost my little brother in 2020, and I wanted to make sure that his legacy was not just in his death, but the way that he lived his life. Ooh, I apologize.
All right.
And to that end, I wanted to make sure that I was connecting students, good students who maybe were, not at the top of their class, maybe a little bit disadvantaged, and be able to give scholarships to those kids. And for the last few years, we have partnered with the Boys and Girls Club down here in South Florida to be able to give the scholarships to kids that are involved there. The kids that are qualified for the scholarships tend to have that need. We've been contributing enough to be able to buy a prepaid Florida plan that covers their first 2 years of college in any of the state colleges here in Florida. So, I feel like that really is able to allow the kids to, to sort of start their journey without having to take out loans, at least for tuition, and be able to, to feel a little bit more, prepared and moving forward on their college journey.
That's a really incredible way to honor and remember your brother. That's really, really amazing.
Thank you.
Can you tell me a little bit about, and I might be butchering the pronunciation of this, so forgive me if I am. Can you tell me a little bit about some of your appearances on Despierta America?
That's pretty good.
Butchered
But you gotta roll it. Despierta America.
Despierta America.
I love it. Yeah. So Despierta America is basically like the Spanish version of Good Morning America. And it's intended to be able to connect audiences with, great segments, great people in the community. And I've been really lucky and blessed to be able to go in and talk about, interesting topics like, does J-Lo need child support from Mark Anthony? I think I did that one a few years ago when they first got separated. And the answer is probably not. But it's a great show that allows me to come in and talk about some of the legal issues that are either happening or, legal questions about something that is in the family law world, whether with, people that are famous or sometimes even people that are not famous, but just about some of the issues that are, happen to be in the media. I've gotten to talk about family law, but even some different legal topics that kind of come up, and they've reached out to me about giving some legal commentary. But it's always a lot of fun. Go in, it's super early in the morning because it's a morning show. Get my hair and makeup done, come out on camera for like 5 minutes, and then go home.
Right. And you get to say, Despierta.
Yes.
So I'm curious, when you think back over 20 years of doing this, when you think back on all that time, all of the people that you've helped, is there a story or a case that stands out in your mind of someone that you really saw a positive transformation in as a result of your help and guidance, so that you really saw a positive outcome for?
So one of my favorite clients, and it's kind of like your kids. You're not allowed to talk about favorites, but one of my favorite clients, we actually were just back in court in her matter. But when she started her divorce, it was because of issues of domestic violence. And she was able to go from being a stay-at-home mom who was being abused, and she was able to use the system in order to get her husband out of the home. And he put her through the ringer. I mean, there's just, I can't even tell you some of the things that happened after her case got filed. But, she went from being a stay-at-home mom to her kids to basically having to put food on the table, because not only, she got him out of the home, but she then had to really put food on the table because he also stopped supporting the family. That's really not allowed, but it sometimes takes a while to get back into court and get things like that fixed. She took a job as a janitor somewhere, making, minimum wage. And throughout the process, she was so focused on making sure that she was bettering herself and working towards being independent and being able to support her kids. She became a certified CAM, which is a certified something property management. I don't remember what the letters stand for, but she's a property manager now, making six figures. We've been able to, to her ex keeps taking things back to court. We keep going back. We keep having fees assessed against him. He's not successful in tearing her down, even though that's what we see as his intent. And she has been able to blossom so much from a scared, basically single mom to a thriving single mom. And every time she tells me that she wants her daughter to grow up to be a lawyer just like me. I think she knows that's the way to my heart. I'm hoping my kids become lawyers. I don't know. But the transformation throughout her legal process has just been so inspiring that that she does often get the nickname that she's my favorite.
What advice do you have for anyone listening out there that might be facing a potential family law situation and a family law matter? What advice do you have for them?
At the end of the day, I would hope that everybody stays together and married. I've been married to my husband for 22 years, as long as I've been a lawyer. And I would hope that you've tried, everything that you can, whether it's counseling, whether it's, talking to a spiritual advisor, because divorce is really, really hard. And I think that sometimes that doesn't always get the airplay that it should, that being a single parent is hard, being a divorced co-parent is hard. But sometimes you have to, like the memes and the internet stuff, you got to choose your heart. Sometimes the choice is very clear that a relationship is toxic, or that it's simply not, in your or the children's best interest to stay together. Once that looks like it's happening, you really want to make sure that you are organized, that you are thinking through, what does this look like? What does the sharing time with my kids looks like? What do my finances look like? I think that I like to say that women tend to, and this is very stereotypical, I understand, but stereotypes are around, I think, for a reason. And women tend to think, if my children are okay, I am also going to be okay.
Right.
Men tend to think, if I am okay, my children will be okay. And that is a very subtle difference, because that means that the mom tends to be focused on what the children are ultimately going to gain, or how the children are going to fare, which in the middle of the divorce, you really don't necessarily know what that's going to look like. Right. While dads are thinking, I need to make sure that I set myself up, because if I'm set up, then my kids will be fine. So neither perspective is wrong or right. It's just a different perspective. But you really have to be prepared to think through all that that means.
Right.
So, getting prepared financially, making sure you've got that emergency cash, emergency credit card, emergency friends and family that will assist should you need it, is really, super important. So preparation.
Well, Vanessa, this has been an absolutely fantastic conversation. If anybody out there listening could use your help, could use the help of the Vasquez de Lara law firm, where can the people find you?
Our website is familylawprotection.com, and we are in basically every social media platform, I feel. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, TikTok, for as long as TikTok is around.
Well, Vanessa, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been Partnerships for Profit, presented by LeDuc Entertainment. Vanessa, thank you so much again.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.